It's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the City Council meeting for Monday, May 15th to order. For those of you wondering where the mayor is, he's excused tonight, so in his absence, I will be facilitating the meeting. So let's please start with a flag salute.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do the roll call to start with. Everybody is here, as well as staff, and we'll start with announcements. Any additions to the agenda? No? Any declarations of ex-parte conflict or contacts or conflict of interest, bias, etc.? No? In that case, we'll move on to public's presentation or comments from the public. We'll start with Mark Shipman, please.
You should hold off to that till we get to the agenda.
Okay. Mark, would you want to wait for the agenda item, or do you want to do it now?
Well, I'd like to speak to the agenda item if I could. So I don't know if that would be now or after the...
Let me hold off. Give me a second here, Mr. Shipman. On the back side.
Yeah, I think after the agenda item would be the appropriate time for Mark to make his presentation.
Okay,
Thank you. Wait for that. Thanks, Mark.
Right.
Councilor?
Brian, I do see that Friends of Old Town Stayton is on our agenda, and I do want to say that I am part of that group. I'm not sure what's being presented here tonight and how that will, whether or not I'd be biased, but we'll see.
Thank you.
What they have to say, and then I'll tell you.
Mark?
I'm also a property owner in that Friends of Old Town Stayton and part of the group.
Thank you. Moving along, we have Judy Mahoney wants to speak on Thank the City. Judy?
Judy Money, 2110 East Pine Street, and I'm part of the FOTS group, and we just wanted to be able to thank the city for helping us get the parklet set up, and others who have helped us do that. I think it's a great asset to the city, and we thank you for allowing this to happen.
Thank you, Judy. Next is Terry Mesa and Tammy Burns, and the topic is the dog park.
Hi, my name is Terry Mesa. I'm at 349 North 3rd Avenue and 429 North 3rd Avenue.
I am Tammy Burns, and my business is also at 349 North 3rd Avenue.
We're here tonight representing the dog park, and so I'm going to read a statement that was prepared for this meeting. The Stayton Happy Tails Dog Park Committee is pleased to announce that we have exceeded the City of Stayton's requirement as of this week, and we have a total of $26,635.45. $24,000 of that is being held by the CDM Community Endowment, and $1,950 from Pavilion and Ford by the City of Stayton. These combined funds are to create an off-leash fenced dog park to be located at 4th and Florence Street in historic downtown Stayton. While there are many challenges along the way, we are proud to say that this committee met and overcame them. It is our hope that our other concerned community members will be inspired by our success and become involved in this city government and work together to enhance our quality of life. We would like to thank the city's Stayton City Council, Planning Commission, Parks Board for their support of this citizen-led effort. There were many other individuals and businesses who donated to this effort, and we will be acknowledging them with the plaque recognition at the park. Our group is willing and interested to continue being involved in the logistics of making Happy Tails Park happen, and we are eager to partner with the City of Stayton in this endeavor. We worked diligently to meet the city-imposed deadline for raising the $25,000 match and actually finished 6 weeks early. So we are requesting that you move ahead immediately with this project to make it a reality and work toward the completion of this project by the end of the city's fiscal year. The Stayton Happy Tales Dog Park Committee looks forward to a photo opportunity and formal presentation of our check to the City of Stayton at the ribbon cutting. And so we're just here to ask can we do as a committee to help the city go forward with this project.
Lance?
Nothing. I look forward to working with you to get this design finished and get it out to bid.
Cool. So should we meet with you next week then, or?
Who is your representative? It's nice to just have not negotiations, but contact with one person.
Do we
and then
have
I'll
a
let you guys
designated-
share the information.
Do we have a designated design committee person?
Design? Probably we have 3 people on design committee, Jay Welch, the vet, Kathy Hampton, who's your parks committee, so.
It'd be nice just to have one person, but I guess
That's
we
probably
could.
me then.
All right. I think you all know my email address. I'd be happy to meet with any or all of you to begin with, and then if we could just get maybe one person in charge of the design that I could work with. That way the communication flow goes through one person.
And that will probably be Jay Welch, but he's really busy because of the clinic, the vet clinic, so.
Contact me, reach out, we'll figure something out.
Okay. Would it be possible to have more than one person, though, involved in the design process?
Yeah, sure, why
Okay.
not?
Awesome. We look
As long
forward
as
to
it doesn't change, word of mouth, and then I get something, I'd like to get it right the first time, so there's not a bunch of changes, and, all right.
No
Very
problem.
good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be a presentation.
Brian?
Yes.
Can I say? I would just like to say that I have been thoroughly impressed with this process, and I just love it when citizens get together to let their voice be heard through this kind of a project of raising money, kind of boots on the ground from people in the community. So good job.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the Eclipse presentation with Jennifer. Sure, you bet.
To eclipse the lights?
Okay. Great, there we go. Hello, my name is Jennifer Godfrey. I am 903 North Birch Avenue in Stayton. And I would like to thank the city and the mayor for inviting me to speak tonight, and for both of my employers for allowing me the time to be here. Detroit allowed me to come and visit, and Roth's gave me the night off so I could present to you tonight. So thank you to both of my employers. It is 98 days until the solar eclipse of August 21st of 2017. And tonight I have 10 minutes to tell you what it is, why you should care, and some things that I think that would be wise to consider. So first of all, what is it? So the basics of an eclipse as a recipe is the moon comes between the earth and the sun. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but it is also 400 times closer than the sun, which allows it to appear the same size in the sky, and thus allows for a total solar eclipse. So this is the umbra. This is the shadow of totality. That is a 60-mile wide stripe that is going over the top of Stayton. This is the penumbra. This is the rest of the nation, and it is not as cool of a show. This is, let's see, oh, you can't do it without tapping it. This is the route that it is going to take as it goes over the top of the United States. You'll see where the shadow begins to get deeper and deeper and deeper. It's going to make landfall north of Lincoln City, and it's going to leave the state in 9 minutes. So the entire show is about 2 hours long, but the path of totality, when you can safely take off your eclipse glasses over the top of Stayton, is 2 minutes. We are close to the center line, so we actually have one of the longest shows. It will leave the coast of South Carolina, and that's the end of it. So this is the most recent, so this total solar eclipse, the last one that we had in Oregon was in 1979. The last transcontinental one of this nature was in 1918. This is the path that it's going to be taking. The closer you are to the center line, the better and the longer the show that you will have. The farther closer to the edge you are, you'll be getting down to, like, somebody called me the other day, they have 45 seconds of totality. So this is a closer view of Stayton. It does not get better than this. That blue line is the center line. It goes right over the top of Stayton and pretty darn close to my campground in Detroit. By the way, our campsite went online November 17th at midnight, and Detroit's 300 campsites sold out in 90 seconds. So this is why they don't happen more often, because the moon's orbit is on a 5% tilt, and so oftentimes the moon's shadow is lost. It doesn't touch the Earth, it goes off into space. So it has to be at an ecliptical node where it will fall directly between the Earth and the moon. And here's a ha-ha funny. So the moon's orbit is an ellipse, as in oval or egg-shaped, which affects an eclipse, and it leaves us with an ellipsis. So it kind of takes your breath away. Here's why everybody's coming to Oregon. So this is 20 years of historic climate data. Orange is bad, blue is good. Oregon is mostly blue. Here is weather data on a numbers chart, Madras and Mitchell being the absolute best, but Salem is right there in the top, or I should say in the bottom on this chart, which means less clouds, or less likelihood of. Here is another map of Oregon. So in this map, this is from Oregon State University. Orange is good and green is bad. So green just means you might have clouds. Usually at this time of year, you're talking about wispy cirrus clouds, but enough to obscure your view. Madras is the #1 place in the nation to see the eclipse. Willamette Valley is second. So what's really going to happen is we're going to have everybody on the Oregon coast trying to be the first in the nation to see it. But at 10 o'clock in the morning, the clouds have not burned off yet. So everybody's going to be hopping in their car. They're going to be shooting up Highway 22, trying to get to Madras. They're going to hit Detroit and Idana and realize that in order to get to Madras, you have to go outside the path of totality or outside the path of totality. The reality is that most of them are going to be T-boning in Detroit and spreading like rats on a ship. So here is a image made by Richard Berry of Night Sky 45 Astronomy Group showing Stayton's path of totality. This graphic shows you which direction to look and how high to look. So on the bottom is the azimuth in degrees. So the show begins at 100 degrees east. The totality is at 120 degrees east-southeast, and the show ends at 140 degrees southeast. So they call it first contact or first kiss at 9:05. 10:17 for 2 minutes exactly is totality, and then final contact is over here at 11:38. This is 2 minutes long. This is the time when it's safe to take off your eclipse glasses without burning your retinas. Your retinas do not have pain receptors. You will not feel the eye damage until it's too late. So 40 degrees up and 120 degrees east-southeast. Here's where I will be. This is the B-loop shore of Detroit Lake. There's Mount Jefferson and Piety Island, and there's the sun on August 20th of 2016. This shore is ran by the Forest Service, and I'm very glad of that. All right, so here is why you should care. So it's going to get dark enough at 10:17 in the morning that you will see stars and a few planets. That is the star Regulus, which is inside the constellation Leo, right here. The eclipse is going to occur right here. They're calling it the heart of Leo. This is the constellation Leo. And this is a very good explanation of Bailey's beads. So this is just before you can take your glasses off. A row of lucid points, like a string of bright beads, suddenly formed. This is Francis Bailey describing what we now know is the topography of the moon. So on the moon's edges, those craters create canyons and peaks, and the last light shining through the deepest canyons of the moon make a thing called Bailey's beads. When the last light shines through the deepest canyon on the moon, that is what we know of as the diamond ring. When the diamond ring goes out, you will notice through your eclipse glasses that it's completely dark. It is then and only then safe to take off your eclipse glasses. This is the 2017 route. There's going to be one in 2024. There's going to be one in 2045. By the way, it goes over Disney World and down where they do test. NASA has a space center down there. That is where I will be. I think I'll be 84, so I'm going to be there. All right, so here we are in the path of totality. We represent 3.8% of the nation. 12.2 million Americans live on the path of totality like we do. Within 100 miles of us is 14.4% of the nation. So that number jumps from 12.2 million people to 47 million people. Here is 200 miles of totality. We now have 27% of the nation within 200 miles of the path of totality, of us, 87.9 million Americans. Here is the most recently released drive shed analysis. So just as watersheds, small tributaries flow into larger bodies of water, they have been doing drive shed analysis of roadways that lead into highways that lead into main arterial highways. So we are right here on the I-5 corridor, and then there's the 101 corridor. We are the 6th largest drive shed in the nation. So previously, they've been estimating that 1 million visitors will be coming to see us in the state of Oregon. Since this drive shed analysis has been released, and it has been made known that 25 million people actually have access to this arterial road, they're saying that 1 million estimate is conservative. So here is a quote to kind of put it in perspective. As a singular event of national scale and with a global audience, because so many people will be coming from elsewhere, this will rival the moon landing of 1969 as a landmark event for a new generation to come. That is how big of a deal this is. Here is a painting from the 1918 expedition that went through Baker, Oregon. They used to have to take naval expeditions to get in the path of totality. People can just drive now. But this is Oregon's claim to fame, this piece of artwork right here. Things to consider. So last year, you may have noticed that SIO had a commemorative cancellation for their stamps. I'm not sure what the process is, but it would be really nice to have a community cancellation. This is the new postage stamp that will be released on June 20th, the summer solstice. This was Fred Espenek designed this. He took both of these pictures in 2006. It is thermochromatic ink, this stamp. So it's the same stamp, but when you put your thumb on it, when you eclipse the stamp, the moon appears. Different communities are getting together and creating all kinds of festivals and creating ways to recognize their town. They're coming anyway, you might as well make it a party. Here are some events that people are doing. They're doing community outreach. They are creating safety encounters. They're creating safe places to view the eclipse. This is the one at the fairgrounds, 8,000 tickets. Inside the fairgrounds, OMSI is reserved. They're going to be having a NASA astronaut, Japanese taiko drummers during totality, so boom, 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 as it gets closer and closer. Here are some things to consider. Traffic. So logistical problems. If the eclipse traffic clogs the roads leading towards the eclipse path, emergency vehicles are inhibited, such as police, fire, ambulances, and will have difficulty making lanes of cars. Has the city considered making alternate routes that are for emergency vehicles only? Have they considered other methods of transport than traditional vehicles, such things as four-wheelers even? So their signage for things like travel information and solar eclipse routing, things like that. This, by the way, is the excerpt from the Google traffic projection estimate map. This is 101, this is I-5, this is 22. So we are orange status. Red is the worst. All right, communication with businesses. So as a city, it is wise to communicate with local businesses to ensure that all businesses have thought this process through. Not everybody is at the same level of awareness as our city is. So making sure that people do not run out of fuel. So making sure your gas stations have enough gas on hand. Making sure that grocery stores have extra water. The town of Madras has an extra semi that they're parking outside one of their grocery stores with perishables and grocery items, making sure that stores have ordered enough water, bottled water, or how about even better, ensuring that all of our public drinking fountains are working properly. Dog park folks, notice the one I put in the picture with the dog waterer. Yep, I was thinking of you guys. Consider providing access to fill locations. So if we have any spigots in public parks that we don't have the spigots on for whatever reason, possibly considering having them designated as water fill stations so that people can come and fill jugs rather than purchasing a bunch of tiny and disposable and obnoxious water bottles that you will then have to clean up later. Ensuring that bathroom and septics are pumped. So pumping any septic tanks as close to the date as possible. It has been made known by the Oregon Emergency Management Systems that semis and large truck traffic will probably be banned on the day of or the weekend of. Ensuring that you have enough porta-johns in your designated areas and that they're strategically located where the masses will be. If you put them in a treed or sheltered park, that may be all well and good, but if there is not a clear view of 120 degrees east, southeast, 40 degrees up, there will be nobody there. So you want them to be where the people will be. Just to let you know, as last I heard, Oregon, the state of Oregon, is sold out on porta potties, and the OEM is advising travelers that if they have to travel on that Monday, to take a bucket. And that is not a joke. Considering additional dumpsters and trash cans for the weekend and the staff to service them. And thematic signage, simple and consistent directional signage that will route the people to the areas that you would like them to go. Because if you don't route them to the areas where you would like them to go, they will go where they would like to go. So it'll ensure that visitors are funneled to desired locations where favorable viewing has already been scouted out. If the city takes the time to make sure that they know where the best spots are and that they have made adequate preparations for people to be in that area, it will make everybody's life a lot easier, and making the signs very plain and visible from a distance. Figuring out where you want the traffic to be, because if you don't plan for them, they will be on the roads. Creating order to prevent chaos. Partner with local landowners and consider marking off areas so that the parking that happens in fields is organized and easily able to egress and ingress. Considering public communication methods. So how will the city communicate with visitors and residents during this large event or during emergencies? So this is a sample of EventBridge. I'm sure you've all heard of EventBridge mass notifications. It's ways for cities to communicate with using all the various social media platforms so that the community can know. It's something they use during mass shooter events on schools. So it's already an existing technology, and it's something that's very recommended because you will have lots of out-of-towners as well as locals, and it's good to help them figure out if something happens, how to reroute them where you'd like them to go. Minimizing light pollution. So one of the things that I know our city has been tackling is making sure that as old street lights are replaced, that they meet new standards for preventing light pollution. These lights oftentimes are on timers, and one of the things that happens during an eclipse is that it gets dark. If it is on a timer, that's fine. If it's on a sensor, you're going to want to make sure that your sensor has a delay or considers a manual delay. Otherwise, you're going to ruin the show. Talking about safety concerns with your visitors. So using local methods of communication that the city has already to talk about when you should have your glasses on, when you should have your glasses off, and safety concerns that the city has to protect its public. There are alternate methods that the city can invest in should you wish to place these in various locations. These are called pinhole projectors. They have safety information, and you can customize them for your town. So this is through Astronomical Society of the Pacific. They're very, very cheap, cheaper than eclipse glasses, and they allow you to do pinhole projecting. There is, of course, eclipse shades. A lot of schools I know are doing these as fundraisers for their groups and clubs. Roth's has them for $2 a pair right now. State Parks has ordered them, but we don't have them in hand. But this is the design. So basically, with the eclipse experience is a function of what you bring to the event. So there are going to be people who are going to see it in apocalyptical terms. There's going to be people that are frantically trying to get there. There's going to be people who are techies, and there's going to be people analyzing the physics of it. And then there are going to be those who are sitting back and enjoying the show and seeing flowers and angels and butterflies. So every person that experiences the eclipse is going to have a different experience based on their vantage point. Our job as a city is to make sure that we provide the best experience possible for those people who will be here whether we want them to or not. So just forewarned is forearmed, and the best planning is the planning that you do ahead. So 98, 97, 96, showtime. So we have 14 weeks left to accomplish all of these goals. Are you ready? Thank you. And to give you an idea, so I know a lot of times when I talk about logistics, it scares everybody, so I have one quick video to show you.
Like 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Oh my god. Oh my god. 33. Wow. Awesome. Oh my god. Wow. Wow. 20 seconds.
Oh, I got corona. I got corona.
Yeah?
I have corona.
Still? There it is.
The reflection on the water.
10 seconds.
Diamond ring.
Diamond ring.
Diamond ring. Look. Oh my god. Whoa. Oh my god. Look. Providence Place.
Wow. Woo. Oh my god.
Check that out.
Wow.
Look at it. Oh, look at the cone, the shadow. See? Look at this. This is the shadow. Like this. Look at that, man.
Whoa. Look at that. Oh my god. Wow. Look at that, man. Oh my god. Is that beautiful or what? I gotta take photos here.
Just incredible.
Ready? Take your time, Nick. Take your time. There's lots of time. Lots of time to look at it.
Look at how gorgeous it is. Look at the sky. Look at the sky.
I know.
Look at the umbra.
Yeah, you can
look at the
see it.
umbra.
Yeah, it's it. Yeah. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, look, that's a cool corona, man. Look at it shooting off like that. Right above the,
Yeah.
Oh, it's so killer.
Wow. Oh my god. Look at it. Wow. Oh my god, that's so beautiful. Look at that. That is so beautiful.
You travel from far, far away.
Wow. Oh, my battery died, but whatever.
Okay, so his battery died, but whatever. So people will travel from all over the world. I have 39 different area codes at Detroit Lake State Park, including Northern Ireland, Japan, and China. And those are the people who could get in the first 90 seconds. So there will be people from all over the world. You may get booked and travel all over the world after we experience ours. But this eclipse, the experience will be what you make it. And so the more we plan for it, the better it will be. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. That was very informative. Awesome. Anybody have any questions?
Who's up after that?
What's that?
Who has the misfortune of following you?
I love talking about the eclipse, and I really pared it down for this, so.
Moving along, up next, Mark, for your information, would be Friends of Old Town Stayton talking about the downtown building codes.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. That's really hard to follow, but that was awesome. So, Honorable City Council and City Staff, my name is Alan Meyer. I live at 2764 East Pine Street here in Stayton. I also work here in Stayton for Pacific Power, and I'm the chair of Friends of Old Town Stayton, and we are here tonight to ask for your consideration for a number of building codes to help improve the appearance of our downtown, the heart of our city, developed by the members of our design committee. We who are members of Friends of Old Town Stayton are doing all that we can do to improve our downtown. In fact, we were just awarded a grant for $17,500 to help improve the old Jensen Kreitzer building, now called the Grove. As you are aware, the citizens of Stayton, via a survey conducted in 2010, over 60% of the residents wanted to see their downtown improved and their city involved with that. And only 15% this really wasn't in favor of that. So really, if you look at it, about 85% of the folks in Stayton are for it or indifferent. So for the majority of us who live in Stayton, want a downtown that we can be proud of, we ask that you consider the proposal of our members of our design committee, who, by the way, are all Stayton residents. And one last thought. We are not asking for our local government to be heavy-handed, but to consider some basic codes to make our downtown clean, safe, attractive, and prosperous, which will benefit all of us who live here in Stayton. Thank you, and to provide an overview of the codes is our design committee member, Steve Poizon.
My name is Steve Poizon. I live at 1750 East Pine. I'm a member of the Friends of Old Town Stayton Design Committee. You were given in your packet this week a draft of some initial ideas about ordinances that you might consider passing. In doing research, most of the towns that have used the Main Street program did use ordinances as a way to create some changes in the way the town appeared. I won't go through them all, but I would like to point out a few of the things that I think are important. First off, we've expanded the area that Friends of Old Town Stayton has traditionally thought of. We traditionally have focused on 3rd Avenue as the street that was most important. However, in these ordinances, we've suggested expanding that to include 1st and 2nd, because we believe the approach to 3rd is also going to be an important factor in drawing people to 3rd. We added an item about requiring that owners who paint their buildings use the existing color palette that the city already has. It's already in your code. There's a color palette. And since we can't require that people all go out at the same time and paint their buildings the same color, I feel it's important that we put that in place so as people gradually do paint their buildings, the appearance will change to have some consistency in the color palette that's used. Most of the items in these suggestions could actually be applied to all buildings in town, or certainly all buildings in the downtown area. We were advised when Mayor Porter first saw this ordinance to keep it small to start with. So it particularly focuses on vacant buildings, which we think are particularly a blight on the downtown area. However, everything except item I in the ordinances, which specifically speak to window displays in vacant buildings, all the other issues could be general issues. And if we had our wish, you would start passing ordinances to cover those areas for all places. I know Councilperson Glidewell was commenting last week about the state of some of our sidewalks and how they're not kept clean by the building owners. That is one of the ordinances that is in here. So it's very simple things like that that really should be a requirement for all building owners. But if we wanted to keep it focused, we're using vacant buildings as the model to begin with. Lastly, It seems that none of the ordinances that you might pass will have much effect unless you put enforcement behind it, unless you include some sort of probably warning by letter, maybe 2 or 3 warnings, fines, that kind of thing. I understand there is an enforcement officer in this city. That seems like perhaps one place that responsibility might go. Certainly the Planning Commission might be, or the Planning Department might be part of drafting these and then sort of tweaking them as we go through experiencing the effects they have. So other than that, I leave it up to you to read through at least some of our ideas on where you might start. There's a lot of directions you could go. It could be expanded, it could be reduced temporarily, or at least for a beginning. But this is where we think you might begin. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That moves on to consent agenda, which there isn't one this time around. There is no public hearing, no unfinished business, so that moves us to new business, which is the city council minutes, and we have to do them individually. So let's start with March 20th.
I move we approve the minutes as written.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the council minutes of March 20th, 2017. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Move on to city council minutes of April 3rd.
So moved that we approve them as written.
Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and second to approve the minutes from April 3rd. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. That moves us on to the minutes of April 17th. Same issue.
I move we approve.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. That moves us on to the city council goals for 2017-18. Staff report, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Today we have John Morgan from the Chinook Institute. I'll go ahead and invite John up while I begin. In your packet is a memo from city staff and from John, and what we've worked on is trying to put together and formulate the council goals for 2017-2018. Just a brief summary, the City Council had 2 work sessions on February 21st and on April 17th. In the packet is kind of the results of each of those discussions. After the April 17th meeting, we were directed to staff to try to formulate coherent goals and do that. And so we presented those in the packet of what our recommendations would be in terms of trying to incorporate the 2 work sessions and come with these goals. We've done our best. These goals may be too broad, they may be too narrow, or we may have missed an opportunity or not translated as need be. So I would encourage for any sort of discussion or recommendations to any changes you'd like to see. If we're unable to do that or we want to, we can bring these back at a later time with some of those suggestions. And then, John, do you have anything you'd like to add for what we did in this process?
No, but I'm happy to, help through the discussion. I think it is interesting that in the long run, what started with a very long list of goals got boiled down to 3 really distinct topics with some sub-action plans under them. Again, reflecting your decision as a council for the most important things that you want the council to be working on over the next year. So this drives budget decisions, it drives staffing decisions, and it certainly will drive your agenda. So this is pretty important for you to lay out this strategy. I commend you for the work you've done. Just needs to come to some conclusion, maybe tonight.
Thanks, John. Council, we'll take discussion to start. Anybody?
Pretty much discussed it to them. I move we adopt them. We've been through the discussion.
I'll throw something out there. Under economic development, I have a concern with identifying a specific NGO as a council goal in such a manner where it's defined as supporting Friends of Old Town Stayton. That's a given already. I don't know that needs to be declared. If it's declared, I think that could be construed in a different way. When it comes to anything that council does as a body that could be construed as not supporting Friends of State, and then the flags come up. So I'd like to not see that in there.
Counselor, which one are you looking at?
Under economic development, that was one of the goals. It's declaring the actual Friends of Old Town Stayton.
That's right. That's right there. Right at the end of the report.
For example, number 3.
Right here.
Oh, the other one, okay.
I would just caution that when we're setting goals, that we don't identify any NGO because it sets a precedent going forward.
As an aside, is there anybody else to support?
I believe one of the reasons that was put in there was because they need to show city support so that they can go out and get grant funds.
Right. The city support's in the budget, the contribution from the budget.
Counselor, quickly, I think that, if there were another group saying we want to do something else, for instance, the dog park or something, and that it were germane and come up and boiled up to the top 3, we would identify and support them in future ones. The Friends of Downtown Old Town Stayton has worked hard to get that, and though I have a dog in that fight, unlike the dog park fight, being a resident there, I think that it's not exclusive to all Friends of Old Town Stayton. It's never intended to be exclusive to Friends of Old Town Stayton.
So why
Could
declare
we
it?
word it a little bit more broadly to say to support economic downtown revitalization efforts or something?
Yeah, so I'm fine with that. I think we're narrowing the scope when we have one entity identified.
And I think that if we don't, it gets muddy, because then you can have, I think Friends of Old Town Stayton, by its nature of the way that it was put together, has so much representation from so many different entities. We have nothing else like it in town. What we do have in town are small groups that are very specific to certain areas. And I think that there could be some confusion if it looks like we are giving support to every group that has any dog in the thing, and that falls within a certain block area, I guess is what I'm saying.
That's my point.
Whereas Friends of Old Town Stayton is an umbrella
For downtown.
for downtown.
Counselor Quigley, might we say that support of Friends of Old Town Stayton and other organizations in the future?
I just want it to be more broad than it currently is.
Well, not if the other organizations dedicated to community improvement in the future. Because nobody's come. There's, we've all been to a lot of meetings for planning parks in here. And Friends of Downtown Stayton and the dog park are at every meeting for one point or another. And I don't know of anybody else that's out there. And so, I mean, if we can put an inclusive statement saying and others, but.
Councilor Gladwell just said that there was other organizations in her discussion about other.
They're not in front of us.
That's my point.
Well, we're supporting the ones who come to us.
I'm just throwing it out there. You guys can leave it the way you want it. I'm just.
I move that we take it and adopt it as written, because these are the people in front of us. I mean, there can be people out there.
Is that a motion, Mr. Conquest? Is that a motion?
I would move we approve.
It's been a motion. Second?
That we approve it as written, is that what the? I'll second it.
Been a motion and a second to adopt the council goals as submitted. Any further discussion? Alyssa?
Just a second. There's something else in here that I want to discuss, so maybe I don't.
Okay,
I
sorry.
mean,
I'll withdraw the motion to hear what Priscilla has to
because I mean, we're not, that was just one
All right, so
thing out of all of the.
Let's move on to the next discussion. Councilor Gladwell?
Out of all of the
Okay.
the things that were on here. So I, as you know, I inadvertently, or not inadvertently, unavoidably could not be at the last meeting. And so, John, you kind of mentioned it, but you didn't really say what the goals are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Can you, for me and for everyone else here, can you tell us what goals the city council decided on?
Well, the ones that are related in here, which is address street maintenance, and then it has 3 specific action items. Update the transportation master plan, update, that's a typo there, Keith, we got to take care of that, to explore and discuss additional funding solutions for the street maintenance fee schedule issue and other funding partnerships, and then review the street standards. The second goal has to do with economic development, update and expand the economic development plan, review codes relating to economic development, and support Friends of Old Town Stayton. The third is neighborhood preservation, with specific action items of identify and create a housing strategy for new housing and legacy housing, explore rental licensing for rental homes, expand code enforcement, and complete a comprehensive housing inventory.
So where it says expand code enforcement, are you talking specifically about rental housing? Is that why that's in that?
No, we have a code enforcement officer now.
I understand that, but it's under the neighborhood preservation, and so I'm wondering if you're looking at, if you guys discussed expanding code enforcement
I think
as far as rental housing goes.
No, I think under that specifically, we were talking about a full-time employee within the code enforcement officer. That's my recollection.
It's global, not just rental housing, but it will include
But
rental
it's under
housing.
this goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's under neighborhood preservation because it helps you preserve the neighborhoods. But there's a global code enforcement officer.
Okay. So it wasn't specific to the rental housing.
That was certainly discussed, and it's part of it, but it's only part of it.
Okay. So it was, that sentence was more in supporting us putting a full-time person in that position versus about rental housing.
Which would help us accomplish the goals of dilapidation that needs attention, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, yeah. And when you talk about reviewing street standards, is that are you talking about the current way that we review things on the name of the thing that we do currently? I've heard it about 1,000 times, like whether or not you need an overlay, whether or not.
Lance, what's the?
Pacer?
Oh.
Yeah, Pacer.
I don't believe that's their job.
Is that what review
We're
street
talking about like what
standards mean?
streets need to be, or stay Lance, correct me if we go back to this, but what streets are going to be gravel, what streets are going to be improved, and how they're going to be improved, and whether they're going to have curbs and cuts.
That
and
was
so-
the goal of the city council?
no,
I'd
that's
have
not
to
correct.
hear that again, John. What's exactly did they say?
What
It really
is
was a pretty
reviewing street
comprehensive-
standards?
It was a pretty comprehensive look at all standards, both dimensional
Yeah, okay.
and elements, as well as even classifications.
So us as a city council will be looking at individual streets?
No, it's more standards that would specifically,
Okay.
more reasonably apply to new construction, but also would help guide you if you were looking at a street that was substandard. Would you bring it up to exactly the exact standards that exist today, or is it acceptable to have a lesser standard in order to improve it?
Okay.
It's all about flexibility.
Yeah, options.
Yeah.
And then on the support Friends of Old Town Stayton, I don't object necessarily to changing the wording of that, if the wording, as long as it still holds the same amount of oomph for any kind of grants or anything else that any group from downtown applies for, that shows that the city council is 100% not only behind them, but has made it a priority for this coming year to do that. And that's a big issue when you apply for stuff, that you can show that when you're applying for funding.
So if
So if
it said support downtown revitalization efforts, is that what you're looking
It's so
for?
broad.
Why not call out Friends of Old Town Stayton? I mean, what's the harm?
There's not a harm, except for somebody, it feels uncomfortable with it. So if we could come to some kind of consensus where everyone was comfortable, I would agree to that.
It's not a harm, Mark. It's, in my mind, if there's anything that can be construed that we're not supporting X, whoever the person's identified is, they can come to us and say, but the council goal said you need to support us, and that's what you're not doing in this particular situation. That's where I'm at.
They can do whatever they want, but as the council, we're an independent body. We're not
But if you're
bound by this
declaring,
contract.
hold on, if you're declaring your support for them on a council goal, anything that can be construed that is not being supportive of them, they have a right to argue it, saying, here's what the situation, you guys said you have this on your goal and you're not doing it, whether it's legitimate or not.
Right. And so could they do that about, anybody could do that about anything that's on here
Yeah, I mean,
then?
anything can be picked apart to the nth degree. If we discriminate against somebody's street versus somebody else's street, or we discriminate against, pardon the term, but slumlords versus other people by code enforcement, I mean, we can pick apart any of these things and we can make it a completely bland document that does nothing. Or we can make a statement that we support people who are in front of us. I don't
The
care.
statement's been made within the Budget Committee contribution.
Well, I concur with that, but I also concur that,
You guys can do
Councilor
what you
Quigley,
want.
what is your wording? What would you propose, Councilor?
I don't want to have it narrow to one specific group.
How would you word it?
But just like Councilor Nagel just said, economic development downtown is fine.
Mr. President,
Ms. Campbell, go ahead.
you know, I did help craft these goals, and I do understand your concern as you speak it. You know, just, I think a little broader term, it is kind of concerning when you set a precedent and you narrowly focus. So I would support, of course, it's the council's decision, but I would support, you know, maybe trying to make it a little more broad. And if there's other groups or organizations, to Priscilla's point, I think it is important, Councilor Glidewell's, it is important that, you know, for trying to get grants, that we still have that under the umbrella, but I can understand trying to have it a little more broad and focus.
I'm perfectly fine with saying and other organizations.
Just add that to the end.
Just add it to the end, Councilor, what do you think?
I'm fine with that.
I move we add and other organizations to that sentence.
I second it.
There's been a motion and a second to add and other organizations to economic development, support Friends of Old Town Stayton, and other organizations. Any further discussion?
Now that seems too broad to me. Now I want to say something like, support Friends of Old Town Stayton and other organizations in their work.
In doing what?
Yeah, in their work.
Toward the betterment of our community.
In their work in the economic development of our Old Town.
Or to the betterment of our community, just.
Well, again, they're really, really broad.
I know, but I mean-
We're specifically wanting something that says that this council is behind what's happening in Old Town. That's what it's about.
I
So
will-
that covers groups working on it, and it covers
I'll withdraw my
economic
motion
development of Old Town.
defer to Councilor Quigley and ask that she make a motion with that and second her motion for that wording.
I'm leaving it up to you. I just stated my opinion. You guys can
Councilor,
like.
do you want to make,
I did.
add the word and make a motion?
I did.
Priscilla? Add that as a,
I am totally lost.
I'd like to make a motion, you add exactly what you said.
Hold on a minute. You withdrew your first motion.
I withdrew my first motion.
Okay,
I
so
withdrew
that one's
second.
off the table. You guys can leave it intact if you like. That's fine. I'm just expressing my concern.
So you know, you talked me into it. I mean, I think that maybe we need to just say, and that we support any effort to revitalize our Old Town.
And I
I mean,
support
that's,
Friends of Old Town Stayton and other groups dedicated to the.
well, we could say that if you want to, Mark, but I think that just if it says what they're doing,
That's
that they're
inclusive.
revitalizing the Old Town.
Right. That's
So you
inclusive of all the people working towards that objective.
You and I were fine with the original one, Priscilla.
Yeah, I know, but everyone else wasn't. So if we could come to consensus, we're better.
I'll let you guys
that a
give me a
motion?
sentence.
Sure, that's a motion.
I'll second that.
It's been a motion and a second to change it to
Whatever
Councilor
she says.
Glidewell. Go ahead and phrase that for us.
Okay, we said that the council supports groups working toward the revitalization of Old Town Stayton.
Including Friends of Old Town Stayton. Well, we need to call out.
That was my point.
I think that, I think we either need to leave it the way it is, because that's what Friends of Old Town Stayton's mission is, so we don't need to say what it is, or we need to take the name out, one of the two. I mean, support Friends of Old Town Stayton, what you're saying is you're supporting their mission, and their mission is very, very clear. It's very specific about what their mission is.
Keith? Can we ask Friends of Old Town Stayton if it would be a benefit to them? I mean, seriously, what's the point of asking? I mean, really, why are we doing this? So that they can get grants. to
Councilor
help us
Conquest,
with-
there's a motion and a second on the table as it is. And that was Councilor Gladwell's statement. So I guess we can continue discussion, or what do you want to do?
Or we can vote. I said it and Jennifer seconded it.
Do you have that? Alyssa?
I think so. I can watch the video back if I don't.
What would say we have right now?
Okay, here's what I have. To amend the economic development goal, bullet number 3, to state, the council supports groups working toward the revitalization of Old Town Stayton. I get it?
There's a motion and a second. That's the motion on the table. Further discussion?
The only discussion is by calling out Friends of Old Town Stayton, is there a benefit to that? Do we know? Can we
Again,
help them-
I would agree with that
Can we help them
we,
make our downtown better faster?
right, I think that we already have by putting them in the budget.
Okay?
So for that, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor of changing it?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimous. So we changed that now. We're going to vote to adopt the council goals.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second to adopt the council rules with the correction or the change. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. That moves us on to the next thing, which is the applicant's appeal of conditions of approval by planning commission. And we'll start with the staff report. Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you, Councilor Quigley, members of the council. The issue before you tonight is an appeal by Hayden Homes LLC of a decision by the Planning Commission that included a number of conditions of approval on their application to subdivide some property at 1103 Shaft Road. The task before you tonight is not to hear the appeal, but to decide whether you will reject the appeal or accept it and establish a date for a public hearing sometime in the future. So tonight is not a public hearing. There will not be testimony regarding the merits of the appeal or the Planning Commission's decision one way or the other. The code says that when an appeal is filed, you decide either to uphold the Planning Commission's decision or, if not, to set a date for a public hearing. But prior to proceeding on any appeal, you need to make sure that you have jurisdiction, that the applicant has the standing to appeal, and that the appeal has been filed in a timely manner. If any of those three are not satisfied, then the appeal should not be entertained. In this case, the code clearly says the council is the proper body for appeals of a planning commission decision. In this case, the appellant is the applicant before the Planning Commission, and the appeal was filed within the 14-day requirement. I've included in your packet a number of items. I think it's about 75 or 80 pages worth. I apologize for that. But it is the information that was part of the Planning Commission's record. You've got a copy of the applicant's application for subdivision approval, the narrative portion of the applicant's transportation impact analysis without the about 80 pages of technical appendices, the review memorandum from Kittleson Associates, who is the city's transportation engineering consultant, a review memorandum from Marion County Public Works, an addendum to the transportation impact analysis that was submitted by the applicant in reply to those review memoranda, follow-up emails from Kittleson Associates, a follow-up letter from Marion County Public Works, a rebuttal letter from the applicant to those follow-up emails and letters, a copy of my staff report to the Planning Commission dealing with the issues of traffic and transportation issues. Finally, the executed order of approval from the Planning Commission with all of their findings of fact, conclusions, and their conditions of approval, and then the appeal form and letter from the applicant. So that's what you've got in your packet tonight. The applicant, their appeal is based on the statutory requirement that as a needed housing project, and the way needed housing has been defined, just about every housing project is a needed housing project, but that for a needed housing project, the city may apply only objective criteria. And if you read through my staff report, which I won't go through the whole thing in detail, I've included the entire statute on those clear and objective standards. The legislature lays out as the alternative to having clear and objective standards is having subjective standards dealing with aesthetics, compatibility with the neighborhood, etc. The standards that this decision were based on, staff contends, were clear and objective standards. The standard that is at play is the impact on traffic and the city's standards, and the adopted standards for making frontage improvements when a development is on a street that is not fully improved. The real heart of the matter, I believe, is not the Planning Commission's standards or the code standards or the Planning Commission's conditions of approval, but that Shaft Road is a Marion County maintained street. As a Marion County maintained street, the standards that the developer is going to need to improve the street to are Marion County's standards. And I believe this appeal was filed not so much in reaction to the Planning Commission's conditions of approval, but what the applicant was told by Marion County Public Works would need to be designed and built when they went to the county. So one of their objections is that the condition of approval was not clear and objective in that we just referred them to the county. The condition of approval is you need to do a half-street improvement. It's a county street. Prepare your engineering plans, go to the county, essentially make the county happy, come back to us and build your subdivision. The difficulty they're having is making the county happy and the standards the county is applying. But the condition of approval is do the half-street improvement. It's a county street, and come back with approval from Marion County Public Works. The other condition of approval that they've objected to is the requirement for a left turn lane to be constructed for eastbound traffic on Shaft Road at the Kindleway intersection, excuse me. This is an issue of, again, conflicting standards. The city's consultant...
Are we hearing the issues? Are we actually hearing the issue right now?
I think you need to have an understanding of what the issue is in order to determine whether you will accept the appeal and hold a hearing.
Okay. And is the person who asked us to do this appeal here?
Yes.
Okay.
Dan, these are county objections from your nighttime, thank you for your bedtime reading last night, but the streets themselves, the sewers and water lines, and the improvement of Shaft Road, it isn't something to do with our Planning Commission or our city code. They are not up to Marion County standards they need to be, right?
It's only the street is the issue. Mm-hmm. Sewer, water, storm drainage is all city.
But they're not up to Marion County standards, not our standards.
Correct.
And we can't do anything about that because it's the county standard, can we?
Correct.
So they've got to fix it.
Obviously, they think that there's something else, or they wouldn't have filed an
Right.
appeal. I'd like to hear why they feel
will
that this is an
have-
appropriate appeal.
Following the staff report, Mr. Shipman is here to convince you that I'm wrong and you should hear the appeal. So those are the two issues. The left turn lane, which Marion County, the testimony that was produced at the Planning Commission, Marion County said their methodology indicates is required, and the requirement to receive approval from Marion County Public Works for improvements to a Marion County maintained street. In summary, staff's feeling is the criteria for approval are clear and objective. The Planning Commission's conditions of approval are warranted under the requirements of the code, and that the issues that the applicant is having are not issues with the city's code or the city's requirements, but are issues with Marion County, who is the road authority and has jurisdiction over Shaft Road. And so with that, there's no reason for the city council to accept the appeal, and that you should uphold the Planning Commission's decision. You've got, if you choose not to do that, staff report has a number of other options and suggested motions for each of those options.
Thank you, Dan. It's appropriate time for Mr. Shipman now?
Yes, I think so.
Mr. Shipman?
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the council. For the record, my name is Mark Shipman. I'm a land use and real estate attorney with Sawfield Griggs, 250 Church Street, Southeast, Suite 200, Salem, Oregon 97301. Here this evening on behalf of the applicant in this matter. We've prepared a letter to the council that I'd like to enter into the record. I'm not going to read it. Dan submitted a memorandum for your consideration, and I thought he did a good job with respect to explaining the parameters and why we're here. You've got very competent legal counsel and Wally Lean here as well, and I know that Wally or Dan may be addressing additional issues here tonight. I kind of see two issues here as to why we brought the appeal. Dan's right. One, we find an issue with the Planning Commission's decision. We don't think it's adequate, and I think there's going to be problems, and I think that if you don't accept the appeal, we'll take it to LUBA, we'll get a remand, we'll be right back before you, and we really would rather not do that. There are problems in the decision. The findings aren't adequate. I disagree with Dan respectfully, but the Planning Commission decision doesn't identify what criteria or standards are not satisfied by the applicant, by the applicant's materials, or what conditions of approval are necessitated for the criteria that are not satisfied. They also further fail to describe what evidence the city relies on and how that evidence requires the conditions of approval for the satisfaction of those approval criterion. And this is important because as Dan noted, there's two really significant conditions of approval here that where it's over and above what the city standard is, okay? And that those conditions of approval are going to cost the applicant in this case in excess of $300,000. And I'm going to get into we're going to talk a little bit about proportionality here in a second, but one of the councilors raised the question is, this is Marion County's issue, this isn't our issue, and I disagree. This is your issue. It's before you. You need to make the decision. And not only do you need to make the decision, but if Marion County is essentially imposing requirements or suggesting requirements that aren't constitutional or go above and beyond what is reasonable, you've got to be able to say, wait a minute, that's not acceptable here. We're not going to agree to that, okay? Just because the folks to the east did it doesn't mean that this applicant has to do it as well, because the city standards don't require it. Dan briefly talked about needed housing, and that's an important factor here. There is a provision within the code. It's found in SMC 17.26.050.11. I don't expect you to turn there. But what it calls for is it calls for designs to comply with city standards. And this is critical in this case, because in this case, Marion County cannot point to the standards that they're requiring my client to adhere to. They're just saying, you got to adhere to these standards. And when we ask Marion County very pointedly, show us where those standards are, they can't do that. And so effectively what they're doing is they're putting that burden on you, the city of Stayton, saying, you deal with it, you take care of that. And that's not right on several levels. The third area that we have a problem with deals with takings. We identified that briefly in our appeal. And under takings law, here, what effectively the county's requiring is they're requiring the city, in this case, to impose a requirement that's going to amount to a monetary contribution needed to construct improvements that are disproportionate to the expected impacts. We're not objecting to the city's requirements that we approve our frontage on Shaft Road. That's the half-street frontage. We don't object to that at all. What we object to is Marion County saying you have to do a full street improvement, and those costs are excessive and they're not proportional. Under the law, the city is essentially required to make an individualized determination that the required exaction is related in nature and extent, and we don't think the Planning Commission did that. So what's the fix to the above problems? Well, I see the fix is in two ways. First, I'd like you to move to approve option number 3, as outlined by Dan, for a new de novo hearing to be held, where new findings and a new correct decision can be issued. This does a couple of things for us. One, it essentially kind of pumps the brakes with respect to our need to take this up to LUBA. Second, it allows us time to go back to Marion County. We've already been in contact with Marion County with respect to setting up meetings where our engineers can meet with their engineers, myself can meet with the county's attorney, and be able to hash this out and come back with hopefully a more balanced and legal conditions of approval that we would like to have enumerated in the decision. And that's important because right now, all the decision in the Planning Commission says is that we shall satisfy the requirements of Marion County Public Works. And that's pretty vague, okay? So, in conclusion, I just would respectfully request that you accept our appeal and that you would go with option 3 on page 7 of the staff memo, hold a de novo hearing on this matter. The applicant is prepared to extend the 120-day review in order to allow for a new hearing and appropriate time to be able to get a decision appropriately issued in this matter. If you have any questions of myself, I can address them now. If you have any specific questions, I realize this is not a hearing on the merits, but Eric Peterson, Hayden Holmes, who is the applicant of this matter, is here, and if you'd like to hear from him, he could answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, Mark, quick question for you. First of all, I'm thrilled that Hayden Holmes is going to develop in the community. And
Mark, microphone, please.
First of all, I'm thrilled that Hayden Holmes is going to develop in our community, and I welcome development. But if you look at the original decision, which is the partition case of 16-015, it wasn't the requirement part of the partition decision for Shaft Road and the improvements? Because I read these things that Dan sends me at midnight. Down here under additional conditions by Marion County. You know, this was part and parcel to the original approval of the thing back in September 15th or 16th, a year ago. You know, that you're going to do the stuff on the road. You're going to do all the road stuff seems to be in, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm only reading what the legal opinion was by the partition agreement between Marion County and Hayden Holmes. I mean, it seems like Condition A on the plat dedicated 30-foot right-of-way, I mean, it seems pretty clear that it's all here. And that, as far as I understand the law, the county takes precedence over the city, the state takes precedence over the county, and the country takes precedence over that. So, I mean, we have to follow that, and it was originally in the decision here with Chapter 16-13-310 of Marion County Code. I can send you the link if you'd like, sir. This is a petition agreement for the property.
Councilor Cronquist, I'm not familiar with that petition agreement. I've not reviewed it. I don't believe that staff identified in the report or in the Planning Commission's decision. So I apologize in advance for that. What I would say is that yes, it's true that there is the notion of sovereignty, but at the same time, the law also expects that you would take pause where another jurisdiction is obligating you or forcing you to do something that is not lawful. And that's all I'm asking in this case. I'm essentially asking you to accept the appeal, set it for a public hearing, and allow us the time that we need in order to work with Marion County to be able to craft conditions that are clear and concise, and be able to come back. And it may require a hearing, or it may not require a hearing. And that's all I'm asking at this time.
So I have a question. So if I give you an appeal, does that put you in a better position to negotiate with Marion County for what they want?
I think so. It was fascinating this week. The County Public Works Director sent me an email, and he said, got your email, thanks very much. Yeah, he says, we need to look at a few things here first before we set the meeting. And I thought, no big deal. And then I realized I got Dan's staff memo, and I read it on Sunday, and I was like, holy cow, he's recommending denial. And I thought, wow. And it's like, if the Marion County Public Works Director is aware that that's the position that city staff is taking, then of course they don't want to sit down and talk to us. I really want to try to apply as much leverage against them as possible. I don't want to put you in a bad position going forward, whether on a LUBA appeal or at a hearing. I would really like to have that pressure applied, because frankly we have battled Marion County on this issue before. We had a decision that was reversed by the Board of Commissioners several weeks ago, where Marion County Public Works overreached, and they essentially wanted our client to put in a requirement that was in excess of, in that case, it was over $200,000 for road improvements that wasn't supported by the law or the facts. And so very similar in this case, I'm looking for that kind of leverage to where we could sit down and be able to say, look, the city of Stayton isn't going to stand for this. They're not going to support this. So you guys need to get on the bus.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions?
I would like to know, possibly from Dan or either from Wally, what's our standard here for deciding whether to reject or accept? Just whatever we want to do?
Yeah, it's purely discretional.
I don't know why we wouldn't.
Mark, if we can vote to postpone this and let you guys fight it out or whatever, I'm fine with that, but 16-33 Marion County subdivision partition requirements are pretty clear that Dan's requirements or the city's requirements reflect that.
I'll tell you where I kind of stand on this, and it's really kind of a historical thing. I can tell you that since I've been in Stayton, every time I ask about why development hasn't happened somewhere, I get the very same answer. Whether it be at the Four Corners, at Shaft Road, or anywhere else, Marion County is requiring that anybody that come to that area do $500,000 worth of stuff. So I am really leaning towards saying, no, this is it. Let's at least give a chance to hear about the fact that Marion County doesn't live here in our community. We can take a look at something and see if we think it's reasonable or not. And if it is, if we feel that their requirements are reasonable, great, we'll support them. But at least let's have a hearing as to whether or not we think it's reasonable.
Yeah, I'd like to go on the record of being in support of growth in this community. So that's not the issue. Dan, how do we get around 16-33, the Marion County thing? We can't really go skating around the county without getting ourselves sued, can we?
Chef Road is a Marion County road. They are the road authority over that road, and any work that takes place in that right-of-way requires a permit from them that will need to meet their standards.
And that's, we're
Our
not,
code requires when a development of any type takes place on a street that's not fully improved, that there be at least a half-street improvement. So therefore, Hayden Homes is going to need to get Marion County's approval to do work in the right-of-way of Shaft Road.
and I
We'll
think
need
that
to
we
meet
need to
their
help them
standards.
in any way that we can to get it. But Mark, we're not here to talk about 16.22569. We're here to talk about whether or not we are going to hear this appeal. That's what we're here for. We're not here to talk about how they are, and our legal counsel has already said it's totally up to us. If we choose to hear it, we're perfectly within our right to do so.
Well, I mean, can we approve, okay. If we approve this, Dan, what happens?
You need to talk to the attorney, Mark, not to Dan.
Well, okay, it's both.
The attorney already answered.
You know.
If you accept the appeal, you'll need to set a date for a public hearing, and then we will get into all of the arguments of what happened and how it happened and why it happened and whether the findings and the conditions are adequate, and you will then be asked to either, again, support the decision of the Planning Commission or to remand it back to the Planning Commission for their additional findings and conclusions.
Could the Planning Commission act independently of Marion County law? No.
We're not here to make that decision, Mark.
Yeah. Did the landowner to the east have to do the same as far as all the guidelines of Marion County?
Yes.
It's enough for me.
There are a couple of other things that I want to add to what Dan just said. And the first one is, if you vote to hold a public hearing, that we need to have some written assurance, which in private conversations and in the meeting today, the applicant has said they would. But we need to have an extension of the 120-day rule, because it currently expires on June 3rd, which is 2 weeks before we would even have the public hearing. And so that's one consideration. And I understand the applicant is willing to do that. I would suggest, if that happens, that we would need that out to July 19th to allow for the preparation of findings and things. The next thing is, if you decide to accept the appeal, you have to determine how you're going to process the appeal. You can have a full-blown public hearing where you start from scratch. Everybody puts their own testimony. The evidence is taken up from the Planning Commission. You go through the whole drill, start to finish. You have an option here where you can just do the appeal on the record. In other words, you take all of the testimony, the evidence that was presented to the Planning Commission, and you base your decision on that, and then the parties are allowed to have legal argument only, but not present new evidence. And that element requires you all to become familiar with the record. And it's a big record. So if you're going to decide it on the record, you all have to be able to say into the microphone, we have reviewed the record and are prepared to move forward with a decision on the record. So you make a decision on the appeal. If the decision is, no, we don't want to accept the appeal, basically we're done. If you make a motion and it is to accept the appeal, then you need to have a second motion which would determine the process of the appeal.
I think that's their motion 2 is the first one you talked about, the hearing based on the past testimony, and motion 3 is to start all over, right? Is that what those? Yeah, that's exactly it. So one of those 2 motions would do exactly what you're saying.
Right, and I think the applicant suggested number 3, so they are asking for the full-blown hearing.
Right, yeah.
And in that case, you don't forget about everything that happened at the Planning Commission, but it stays a part of the record. but everybody is allowed to present new evidence before you at the July or June 19th hearing, if that's what you decide.
Yeah. So I not only do I have concern because of what Marion County has been requiring of, it seems like any kind of development anywhere along those roads that has stopped the development. I also have an ongoing concern, not necessarily about the truth, but about the perception of developers that we are not friendly to them. And being part of that, being a contractor, I hear a lot of talk. I'm also with developers all the time. And to again, not that I'm saying that we aren't friendly to and open to development, I'm saying that that is the perception. And consequently, to not allow a developer to be at least heard beyond what the normal process is, I think substantiates that sort of view of Stayton. And I think that we have really, really missed the boat. If you look at other small towns around us, that, again, particularly Monmouth, Dallas, Independence, they have some incredibly forward thinking developments that are happening in those communities. And the reason, when I go and talk to those developers, that they won't come here is because they say that it's too difficult to get heard. And I think that this goes beyond just this development here. This goes beyond just looking at what we can or can't do down the road regarding what Marion County's requirements are. This is saying either we're going to listen to people's concerns or we're just going to throw it out the window. And you can say that you're open to development all you want, but if you're not giving people the voice that they need to hear it, it's going to be perceived that we're not open. So.
President, real quickly. I will get a letter in to Wally and to Dan this week, waiving 120 days and extending it out to July 19th, so I just want that on the record.
Thank you. What does the council wish to do?
Start the bulldozers.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the appeal of Hayden Homes and schedule a de novo hearing.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the appeal of Hayden Homes and schedule a de novo hearing. Further discussion?
I'd like to suggest the motion be amended to set the date for that hearing. Unless you're going to do it on a second motion.
It's set on July 9th, June 19th.
That's what the written motion said, but that's not what I heard the counselor say.
It's motion number 3, exactly what you have down here, to move to accept the appeal of Hayden Homes regarding the Planning Commission's approval of the Lambert Place subdivision set for June 19th, and that would also be
July.
that would be contingent upon receiving their notice of not their extension. No,
don't.
Okay, don't do that.
We're not. We can't blackmail them into doing it.
Okay.
It has to be voluntary, right, Mark?
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't want that as a part of the motion.
So as written, motion number 3 as written. How's that?
So there's a motion and a second. They're confirming over there.
Is this the proper date?
Yes.
Okay.
Melissa, you want to poll the council on this one?
Counselor Glidewell?
Yes.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
No.
Counselor Usselman?
No.
Counselor Cronquist?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
That concludes that. And we will move on to staff and commission reports, starting with the finance department.
Thank you, Council President. I have nothing further to add beyond the reports, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the finance department? Okay. That goes to Public Works. Lance?
You have my operating reports for the months of March and April. I have nothing further to add to those, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have for me.
Anybody have any questions for Lance? Nope. And it goes to Planning and Development.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
I have a question for Lance.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, this is a little
Oh,
off
sorry.
off subject here. It's not directly related to your report. It's related to the dog park thing. I kind of wanted to smile knowing how long it takes to do things about having a dog park done by the end of our fiscal year. But I was wondering what a more realistic projection might be.
Well, I guess I would have to see.
6 months, 8 months?
Oh, no, I can get it done quick. I just want to see a check.
Okay. I figured at least 6 months.
It was a very nice presentation this evening. I enjoyed that, but I haven't seen any checks yet. So,
Did you see the movie Jerry Maguire?
No, I didn't.
I don't know, it's up to the city council, though, if you would like me to proceed without seeing
Well, I
a check.
thought somebody tonight said that they would present the check on dedication, and I thought,
I need the money
wait a
before then.
minute.
I'm not,
I believe the money's at the Riverview Bank and all.
Yeah,
It's here.
the
But
endowment
I'll have Mayor
has it.
Porter contact you with the information. He's at his daughter's graduation right now.
That'd be wonderful. I think we need to put that into a city account so we can draw on that when we design it.
Yeah, I'll ask Hank to Sandy to do that.
All right, and once
So-
I see that, I'll move full speed ahead.
Okay, so we will let whoever the people, Reese or somebody, know that that is a holdup, that that money needs to be put into a city account for them to move forward, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we hadn't seen the information before tonight, so we
Okay.
need to get the information and make sure we have the funds secured and access to them, and we can move forward.
Okay,
The city won't be holding this up. Once we receive the funds, my department will move full speed ahead and have something
I just
out
wanted
soon.
to make sure that you or Keith were actually contacting them and telling them that they needed the money, so we don't have that kind of roundabout way with information that goes around and around. that
I
it
will
actually-
send
okay.
an email out tomorrow
Great.
to the parties that I have been in contact with, stating
Great.
just what I stated to you. Once I
sounds
receive that check, I'll move full
We'll
speed
move
ahead to
forward.
get this thing designed.
Got it,
All
okay.
right.
are they going to provide a funding list as well?
Are they going to provide me with the funding list?
Yeah, I'm curious, is that what this is?
I think there's one
Yeah.
in there, but I
Yeah.
don't know how accurate it is. It doesn't
Okay.
actually have dollar amounts, I don't believe, but, and it has a list of people that look like they have donated.
Yeah, I think that they only put people in that list that were over a certain amount.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've seen this.
Yeah, I didn't actually see it either.
Can I address that? There is a letter in there.
If you're gonna, can you go to the microphone, please?
There is a letter in that presentation piece from Stayton Community Endowment Fund, a 501c3, who held the money and stating how much money there is and that it's available.
Thank
So
you.
it's just a signature away.
It goes to, I skipped the police chief. Sorry, Rich.
No problem. Counselors, I bring to you tonight the statistical reports from the month of March and April. And there is one number that's a little bit higher than normal, and it has to do with on the other assaults on the April report. The majority of those, or several of them, come from reckless endangerment charges on DUIs. The other ones were a couple of different fights, and another person that had assaults on a couple of different people. That was a juvenile issue. So if you're wondering why those numbers leaped up quite a bit, that's what those are from. A couple of months ago, I talked to you about our cadet program that we were starting up. Since then, we have 5 cadets that have been all the way through the background phase, and they've already had 4 training cadet meetings. So they're very excited and moving forward with their their chance to be police cadets. You've also seen some lower numbers in our reserve volunteer hours. I stated that before. That was because of we had several very high-hour volunteers that were hired by other agencies, other policing agencies for full-time career positions. We now have 3 new reserves in the background phase to help replace some of those as well. Next month, on June 16th, is our annual Junior Fishing Derby for kids that we join with several other agencies around the area, and we go to the Roaring River Fish Hatchery just outside of Scio, and that'll be on June 16th. And it's always a fun event. We usually have about 60 kids that attend that, and then you should be seeing, starting to see our summer enforcement in full force, which means the officers will be out in the parks more, particularly down by the river, and dealing with issues in those that comes about during the hotter weather in the parks.
That's it, Chief?
That's it.
Anybody have any questions for Rich? Thanks, Rich. Dan?
Not only did you skip over the police chief's report, you skipped over adoption of Resolution 955 on the agenda.
I did.
So I'll give my staff report on that real quickly before I give you my exciting monthly report.
I don't know how I did that.
Well, you know, if the mayor wasn't here more frequently, then you'd have more experience chairing the meetings. So, Resolution 955 that staff has placed in front of you is a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application to the State Departments of Transportation and Land Development and Conservation for a transportation and growth management program grant that would be used to finance a portion of the cost of updating the transportation system plan. The city applied for a grant like this 5 or 6 years ago and was not successful. We thought we were trying again since so much time has passed. It's an item that's in the budget to be fully funded by the city, so we figured why not try. The application process requires a resolution of support from the city council, and you've got a draft resolution in front of you if you care to adopt it.
Thanks.
Will this be applicable to the transportation master plan or anything usable in that?
That is exactly what it is for. The transportation master plan and transportation system plan are 2 different names for the same document.
What does council wish to do?
I move we approve.
Second? I'll second it. Motion and second to approve Resolution 955, authorizing submittal of grant applications to support update of transportation system plan. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
So I do want to give you a little pat on the back here, Brian. You missed it because it's behind the book that was in front of
Oh,
it.
right. Thanks.
That Mr. Dan Flashman buried it under.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to
Right.
staff report.
So, you've got my memo on what I was up to in March and April combined. I think I realized after I sent it to Alyssa, I failed to mention the Planning Commission's April meeting, which actually they held 2 meetings in April because the March meeting wasn't held because of lack of quorum. But other than that, just to note, I did go to a workshop in, I think it was mid-April or so, put on by the U.S. Census Bureau. We are just now starting to get geared up for the 2020 census, which will happen shortly after the eclipse.
If we're all still here.
Right.
You could still be stuck in traffic.
Yeah. That leaves Jana.
So you guys have my March and April report before you. I also like to invite you on Thursday night. Chris Claysmith, a Stayton High grad, is going to do an eclipse program. He's an instructor at Chemeketa, and he'll be here Thursday night.
What is bad art night?
Bad Art Night is for adults who want to come do art for about 45 minutes and work on making a disaster piece, and the disaster piece gets a trophy. So it's quite fun.
And the theme on Thursday night's Eclipse is different than
Yes, different than Jennifer's.
That leaves us for a chance for the public comment again. Is there any presentations or comments from the public? Judy?
Judy Money, 2110 East Pine. I just want to say we're citizens, and we're working really hard to help you with the downtown and improvement. And I'm just disappointed that FOTS wasn't in that voting that went on, because it makes me feel sad. And we're going to continue. We believe in it. We want to help you. You don't have the resources. We're out there. We're doing things. Plus, you're also helping us. And we're going to continue, but I am very disappointed. Thank you.
Anybody else? Business from the city administrator.
Thank you, Council President. In the packet is the GFOA press release and the GFOA documentation. With modern technology, we have done a press release and put this out, and this has made the paper, but they did recommend making this publicly available, and so we wanted to do that. Also, just to let you know, we do have a meeting planned for July 3rd, and I'll go ahead and just announce at this point we do plan on canceling that meeting right before the 4th of July. And that's all I have.
Anything from the council, since the mayor's not here? With that, meeting's adjourned.